Well, another wonderful day in retirement, team.
Oh, I know. Isn't it just a great life being retired, Norm?
Wish we could have done it sooner when we were 20 or...
We're going to retire at 20, Norm.
No, we didn't have any money.
No, we didn't.
But the one thing that would screw up a happy retirement are these 7 retirement budget mistakes to avoid.
We're going to talk about those today, aren't we, Norm?
We certainly are. So why don't you lead off, Tina?
Ignoring inflation. You know, this is a real biggie, Norm, that over a period of years, your spending power can halve. So the money you have is not going to be worth as much in 10 years' time, is it?
And we've seen rampant inflation over the last couple of years in most Western countries, where we saw food prices just soar. So you need to have a plan that you can maybe have a flexible budget. So as things go up and your money isn't keeping up with it, perhaps you need to cut some things or look at investments that will keep up with inflation. But just don't ignore inflation. Remember, the spending power of money, rule of thumb, roughly halves every 10 years. And you need to have a plan to take that into account.
And that's one of the big things that we keep saying, hey, Norm, do that budget.
Make a budget. That we should have t-shirts.
Yeah.
Make a budget. Number 2, underestimating healthcare costs. This is a big one for our American audience, and we do sympathize a lot with you because healthcare is expensive. But you need to plan.
Yeah, and obviously in the US you need to plan for your Medicare costs and long-term care. But don't think we don't have to here in Canada too, because we have things like prescriptions and dental costs that we have to fully pay for. And also when we go to the optician, hey Norm?
Yeah. We pay the dental and optician out of cash flow, out of our savings. The prescriptions, once you reach 65 in Canada, you have to pay $100 like a copay.
Yeah.
And then the additional prescriptions are, I hesitate to say free because we pay tax and the tax pays for those medications. But in the US as well, you need to start thinking about long-term care. Do you have a history in your family of maybe dementia or diseases like that, where your relatives have had to have care? If not, maybe just budget a smaller amount of money, but be mindful that you have expenses in the medical area, both in Canada and the US. So budget for those. Did we say t-shirt and budget?
Yeah, I think we definitely need these budget t-shirts.
Number 3, failing to plan for housing costs.
Oh, this is a huge one. As you're approaching retirement, whether you have a mortgage payment or a rent payment, you have to budget for that. It's a huge part of your expenditure.
Maybe you should consider downsizing. One of the things that we find very surprising, because we had a 25-year mortgage, but we paid it off as if it was a 15-year mortgage. We kept accelerating the payments. So when we were in our early 50s, we had that paid off. We're staggered by the amount of retired people when you look at figures from Stats Canada and from the federal government of the US. How many retirees have a mortgage? And that is robbing you of your cash flow to provide food and the basics of life.
And I think another thing too, Norm, is that how about considering either downsizing or relocating to a place where those costs might be cheaper for you.
Yeah, there are cheaper areas to live, and when you retire, you don't necessarily need to keep living next to where your employer was.
No.
So it does make sense. We downsized and moved a 6-hour drive away from where we used to live, and this area is cheaper than where we were living. So you really do need to analyze your housing costs and where's the money going to come from. And if you do have a mortgage, maybe think about selling the house, downsizing and becoming mortgage free.
Great.
So what do we have for number 14?
Oh, this is a big one. Overspending on debt payments.
We just love to have that new stuff, don't we? We've got the Amazon on our iPads 24 hours a day. Let's buy that. But the thing is, it all ends up going on a credit card.
Yeah.
And we have found out that 79% of Americans do not pay their credit card off every month. We were like that in England before we came to Canada, and we made a promise to each other that we would never carry a credit card balance ever again.
And we haven't, have we? You know that high debt burden can be an absolute killer because it completely affects your cash flow.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is pay that debt down before you retire.
If you're in your 50s or late 40s, that's the time to get a stranglehold on debt and start to have a shift in mindset that you're not going to be in debt. When we became debt-free, honestly, it was one of the most relaxing and freeing moments of our life, that we no longer had to make payments on a mortgage, a line of credit, or credit cards.
It was a great feeling, wasn't it?
It was awesome.
And I still think that we have that same feeling now, knowing we got rid of all that.
And number 5 is really cause and effect of point number 4, overspending on debt payments. You're not saving enough. If you're not retired yet and you're, what are you, Gen X? I don't know all the different generations.
I think that's the people a little younger than us.
If you're coming up behind us and you're still working, the temptation is just to buy stuff. Buy stuff you don't need and ultimately don't want. But in the moment, it makes you feel better. Maybe you're depressed, or maybe you just, want to walk around a shopping mall or go and buy a new car to make you feel better. Honestly, after the first week of having that product, that feeling is gone.
Yeah, it's just like a temporary Band-Aid, isn't it? What we're saying is you need to put some of that money into saving so that you have that money behind you as you're approaching retirement.
But not only that, Tina, you really need to look at the future. What is your retirement plan? What's your rate of savings at the moment? Are you spending all your money on debt repayments instead of saving for your retirement? Because you'll get to a stage where you won't be able to work. No. And where's the money coming from? So there are plenty of online calculators that you can use to see how much money you're going to need in retirement. And you can go onto the federal websites to find out what your likely CPP payments are going to be. Or in America, it's
Social Security. It's all there. It's available for you to go on and find out. And what that does is once you've found that out, you can budget accordingly and you can plan accordingly, and it will make your retirement so much easier.
Yeah, so it's going to an online calculator will tell you how much you need to save to be able to add to Social Security or add to CPP, Canadian Pension Plan. Ignoring investment growth for number 16.
I guess this is something that you have to offset that, don't you? But you also have to keep things simple, don't you, as well?
I think what Tina meant to say, but she can't read it from here, is offset inflation. You need to be aware of how your investments are going to grow, what investments are growing, and how much do they need to grow to offset inflation. So coming back to point number 1, ignoring inflation, your spending power halves every 10 years. So if you have good diversified investments, they will offset that inflation for you. You don't need to be spending hours a day on your investment. If you don't know how to invest, seek professional advice from a licensed financial expert, maybe one that you have to pay to get the information from, so they don't end up selling you products that you don't need. I listened to Dave Ramsey, and he said on his radio show that he keeps his investments simple. He has his business, which is the Dave Ramsey Show. He has his real estate that he lives in, and he has mutual funds, and that's it. He doesn't bother buying stocks. He just puts the money into his mutual funds and just leaves it, and he doesn't have to worry about it. So you could be doing that with ETAs or low-cost versions of mutual funds. Number 17.
Not having a contingency plan.
And that's not, having one of those little radios saying, beam me up, Scotty.
And you know what, Norm? Life can be unpredictable in many, many ways.
It certainly can.
Yeah.
And not only it can upset your finances, but there are a lot of things that can happen. Even though you're retired, you still need an emergency fund.
Yeah, absolutely, you do. Because you can get, as they say, curveballs sent to you in all different ways, aren't they?
Do you know what a curveball is, Teen?
I do know. I think that's a terminology for baseball when they throw it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about cricket.
No,
Oh.
I do know that it's a baseball terminology.
So having a contingency plan, and so what we have done with that is that we're not fully invested. So we have left roughly half our money in cash instruments, half in growth instruments, which are stocks, things like that. So we have 6 months of cash in a high interest savings account as our emergency account. And we would highly recommend that you do the same thing so that you can get hold of money within 24 hours if you have to.
I think it's a great idea because you just don't know what you can't have all your money tied up, so you can't get at it. Because things do happen in life and you just might need it quicker. So have that emergency fund, even in retirement.
So if you're younger than us, what we're saying is sit down, plan out your expenses, realistically what they might be in retirement. Don't think that you're going to live on a beach at an all-inclusive resort 365 days a year. You get sick of the sunshine and you get sick from the coconut drinks. Make a realistic budget of what you're going to need in retirement and see whether your finances will provide that. That's all that we're saying. And if you've liked this type of episode, we will link to another one. I'll put a link just in front of me that you can click on and continue these discussions. So just remember, don't make 7 retirement budget mistakes, and we hope everybody's staying safe.
And keeping well.
And until the next time,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.